An early retirement can feel scary, and a lot of questions that I get, in a recent question that I received was, Ari, should I still plan on an early retirement considering life expectancy is getting longer? Meaning no longer are we passing away earlier, we are passing away later. And so they are asking me essentially, how do I make sure I don't run out of money if I retire early? So as we're living longer and longer, you want to make sure you have a plan for those dollars. The last thing I imagine that you want to do is retire and go, oh my gosh, I did not plan well, or I'm living longer than I thought. Do I need to go back to work, or do I need to spend a whole lot less, and am I going to be okay? So today, I want to work through 3 things to really think about when it comes to early retirement planning in general, and then I'm going to give you a few bonus tips at the end of just things my clients that had these same concerns had, of course, and then what they did to overcome them from our planning sessions, as well as from just things that I've mentioned to them over time. So where I want to start with this is here. Quick reminder, once again, I am Ari Taublieb. I am a financial advisor, and I help people retire early. Host of the Early Retirement Podcast, as well as Vice President here at Root Financial Partners. So let's hop in. Once again, here's where I want to start. Number 1, when you are thinking about an early retirement, yes, it's important to talk about the finances. It's important to talk about taxes and all of those things. But what on earth are you going to do with your time? Some people go, Ari, I don't know. I don't need to have it figured out. I don't want to work anymore. And if that's you, that's okay as well. But a lot of people are coming to me and they are, just so you know, retiring. And then they're like, hey, I'm lost. And the reality is my identity was in work. They didn't really explore what part-time income could look like. And they thought it would be nice to do a less stressful job. And it turns out they didn't enjoy that. So just do some brainstorming and think through, what are you going to do in retirement? Even if it's tentative, can you start almost practicing those things? Let's assume you're 55 today and you're going, Ari, I want to retire early at 58 or 59 or 60 or something like that, assuming your finances show you can do so. Well, that's when you want to start going, okay, what on earth am I going to be doing in retirement to fulfill my time? Is it going to be fulfilling? Can I start implementing some things today? So that's kind of number 1, just very high level. Number 2 is, do I have the finances to support an early retirement? And this is something people are always going, hey, how do I know this? How do I figure it out? Is there a magic number? Is there a spreadsheet? And there's none of that. And I'm sorry, because if it was, it would be a whole lot easier, but I'm giving it to you straight. And here's why. When it comes to an early retirement, only one thing you need, and that's cash flow. You need to supplement the income to meet your lifestyle needs. Now, what's not going to happen is you're going to spend the same amount every single year. If that was the case, your job is very easy. In fact, my job would be very easy as a planner. But what happens is you're going to retire and you're going to have energy and health, and you're going to want to travel and do other things or spend more time with family. And I want you to do those things. However, I want you to do those things understanding what's the impact of that for the long term. Because the reality is I've seen people overspend earlier in retirement and then go, we're kicking ourselves because now we don't have as much to do what we wanted later in life. And the flip side, where people underspend, yes, that's a real thing. And then in the later years, they're like, wow, I could have done all these amazing things that I didn't do because of financial reasons. So how do you work through potential income sources? And also, one extra layer to this, the varying timing of that. So for example, let's assume Social Security, you're taking that at 70. Okay, that's a lot later. And maybe you're doing that because you saw me talk about a video about, yes, we want to maximize, but more than that, we want to be able to implement Roth conversions or tax gain harvesting. And if none of that sounded like English, that's okay. What that is those are strategies that you can implement to have more after-tax dollars. Some things to pay little, sometimes 0% in taxes. That's one thing to consider here. It's not the main thing though. The main thing is, how do you make sure as you have income sources hitting at different times, maybe there's pension, maybe there's rental income, maybe you are doing part-time income, maybe that's going to impact your Social Security benefits in the future. Maybe there's a portfolio, and maybe there's inheritance, and there's all these moving pieces. So you're wondering, okay, where on earth do I pull from? Go through a planning process, either with myself and my team, or another planner that resonates with you. But what you want is someone who specializes in that early retirement planning, because a lot of advisors, I've seen this, and I almost apologize to people on behalf of the industry, because what happens is people go through a process and they'll say, hey, this shows, you have X probability of success to retire, but that's great, but that's looking at traditional retirement, and that can oftentimes be 30 plus years. So if you're retiring at 50 and you're going, Ari, I'm going to live to 100, well, I want to at least plan on that. I don't want this showing that you're running out of money at age 80. You're going, Ari, that's not a whole lot of confidence I have in the plan. So that's another aspect to it. So number one, once again, just kind of reiterate so far, is can you look at this and go, what on earth am I going to do in retirement? And how can I make sure I'm really excited to do that? Because you're going to have many, many years where you're no longer needing to work. And that might be enough. You might go, Ari, the reality is now that I no longer need to work, I still want to keep working. But that makes it easier to go each day. And that's okay. Number two is, how do you have the finances to support an early retirement? If you want to spend $6,000 a month, great. Let's assume there's a mortgage on top of that, and maybe that'll stop in 10 years. So we run projections and we go, got it. Here's how much you want to spend. This would excite you. Good to know. But let's take it a step further, because $6,000 today is going to be very different than 10 years from now. You want $72,000 a year, 6,000 times 12. Well, all of a sudden in the future, you're going to need $80,000, $90,000 plus dollars to just able to maintain the same standard of living. So if our investments are not aligned for that, well, that can be a big problem. That's number one. Number two, number three is what I'm going to go over now. This is the big one. And then I promise I'm going to leave you guys with a few pro tips that I've heard from clients, as well as things that I told them to implement. Number three is please, please, please do not take a cookie cutter approach when it comes to an early retirement. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of people go, now that I'm retired, now that I no longer have a paycheck that's coming in, I need to make sure I am conservative. What does conservative mean? And I'll ask clients this, and it kind of feels even weird doing quotation marks around it, but here's why I do this. And I know it can feel silly, but I promise I do it for a reason. When I say conservative, what's the first word that comes to your head? You might have the same word as everyone, but most people will hear conservative and they're like, I want to be safe with my money. I want to preserve it. And I tell them, I'm thinking the same thing you are. Here's the difference. I have a different implementation strategy for being conservative. My implementation strategy, which is conservative, is I never want you to run out of money. So how do I make sure you never run out of money? We outpace inflation with a lot of our dollars that we're not going to touch for a long time. Let's assume you have $2 million. Some of these dollars you are not going to tap into for a long time. When it's there, we're going to need it, but I don't want you having to, worry about market fluctuations. So I go, how do we make sure enough is outpacing inflation? And how do we make sure the other amount is in a bucket strategy? Maybe that's a CD laddered approach, which you might have heard me talk about on the podcast. Maybe that's a different approach where you're invested in inflation protected securities and in different durations for bonds. There's all these different ways of approaching this, but the main thing I don't want you to do is go, hey, I'm getting older, now that I'm retired, I no longer have income, I need to be really, really safe. Because if you do that, and let's pretend that you put everything in cash, or you put, 30% of it in equities and 70% in fixed income assets, you're gonna have a wonderful time the first 5, 10, 15 years of retirement. But not only could you have had a whole lot more, you're gonna be kicking yourself more than likely, going, wow, I don't wanna put myself in jeopardy and now become a future burden to children because I didn't understand the investing implications of a successful retirement, especially an early retirement. So what I tell people is that I'm not pro equities, I'm not pro fixed income, I'm not pro cash, I'm pro you never running out of money. So the way we do that is we look at how much income you need and we determine how much do we need safe, ultra safe at all times. Well, the average market downturn is 2 to 2.5 years. So if you're coming to me and you're like, Ari, I want to be spending $6,000 every month, adjusted for inflation, call it after taxes, that's $72,000 a year. So let's double it. So now $150,000, and that's conservative. I know it's not exact, 144, but just humor me here. $150,000, we want super safe. Let's be, 2 to 2.5 years, that's the average downturn. Let's be, more conservative than that. Let's have at a minimum, let's double it, $300,000, but that's 4 years. That $300,000 represents about 4 years of living expenses. Well, to me, if we're going above and beyond that, in terms of the markets doing other things and we're not able to have enough cash to last even 4 years, there's bigger problems in the world. But to me, I want to make sure those 4 years of expenses are liquid, you can access them. The rest of it, I want growing for you. So let's pretend you have a $2 million portfolio and we work through your expenses and it's exactly what I just said. Well, now that there's absolutely no reason between the $2 million and the $400,000 I just mentioned, that can't be growing for you. The logic hopefully is starting to resonate here. And by the way, I'm not including a pension. I'm not including Social Security or rental income and any of that. So the reality is you could have less and still be okay. But even then, I'm going to start talking to you about some pro tips. Here's one pro tip that I learned from my client and now I implement it with all of my clients. I'm going to come back to you with financial recommendations, assuming you say, yes, Ari, this sounds what I'm looking for. I want to go through a planning process with you. And if that's you, wonderful. You can of course do that below and apply. If you're going, hey, I just want to watch these videos for education, great. So please, whatever you're getting the most value, that's what I want. Now, let's assume you're going, Ari, yeah, it sounds like what I'm looking for. We go through a planning process. What I want to make sure happens is that you are really, really confident. So how do we create that confidence? There's the financial aspect and the non-financial aspect. I'm going to show you, hey, here's what the numbers show. So let's go back to that example. You need $6,000 a month adjusted for inflation after taxes. You've got $2 million. You've saved and invested well. A lot of people come to you with that kind of similar situation. And now you want to get the most out of this. So if that's you, you're going, okay, you want to get the most out of this, but I'm going to come back to you and show you what the numbers say. And then I'm going to show you one graph, and it's going to show you, here's what downturns could look like in retirement. 25%, 30% down. And you might go, Ari, I get the numbers say that, but guess what? I'm not looking for that experience. Then guess what? We're not doing it, because the point of proper planning is that you're sleeping well at night and you're confident about your money. In this case, is I would say, great, as long as you understand the trade-offs, I'm perfectly good with that as an advisor. That allows me to sleep at night. But I need you to know, here's what the finances say. It doesn't mean we're doing it. It means we're taking that and going, okay, what's that real comfort there? Because you might be going, Ari, I know I'd be okay, but I don't want to see my money go 25, 30% fluctuations when I'm retired. Other people, it's, Ari, that doesn't bother me at all. I've been investing for 40, 50 plus years. I know that's how it works. Assuming you show me I have the income I need, I'm good with it. So that's kind of pro tip number one. Pro tip number two is check up, meet up. Literally check up. I should have said check out, meet up. MEETUP. This is literally, you can go meet up with other people, and I have clients that love this. These are people who, they retire and they're like, I don't know what on earth I want to do, and they go on Meetup and they're with, other retirees from different backgrounds. There's college students, there's people who are, in the middle of their career, and they are doing all these fun activities. They're going to museums and they're spending time at the beach and they're playing games, and there's just fun stuff that you're doing. Now, if you're in Nebraska, you're not at the beach, but you get my point. No harsh on Nebraska there, but just wanted to, I have one client who's in Nebraska who I know loves these videos, so I'm poking fun at you if you know who you are. But here's what I want to talk about is that's kind of pro tip number two. Pro tip number three, and probably the biggest tip I can say when it comes to any of this, is I want you to think about life first, and what is it today that's stopping you from retiring early? Is it the finances? If that's the case, then great. Understand how many more years you need to do what you are doing so that you no longer need to work again. That's part one. Part two is, let's assume you could retire right now. What is really stopping you? Because some people are like, Ari, I just kind of feel like it's a moving target, meaning once I have $1 million, I'll retire, but then it's $1.2 million, then it's $1.5 million, and they just never do it. So understand what's really stopping you from retiring earlier right now if you could, and is it something that could be solved through Social Security decisions or retirement timing, or what if you could save X number of dollars on taxes? How many more years could you get back on your life if that was the case? And what right now is deteriorating your life? And when I say that, I'm really talking about health here. A lot of my clients wish they retired earlier, didn't because of financial reasons, and they're going, Ari, I can't get those 5 years back. So tell these people, hey, understand when you're in that position. So that's it for today. A few pro tips and then 3 things to think about. Hope this video was helpful. Once again, this is what I do for clients. So if you're looking to create your custom strategy, check out the description below and you can apply to do just that. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you don't know, I am the host of the Early Retirement Podcast, and this is what I love doing. I help people create a custom strategy to retire early. You can always reach out to me or a member of our team here at Root, and we would be happy to walk you through our planning process to show you how we can help you get more life out of your money.